Well, hello again, my friends, and welcome back. Well, this is now episode number 3 of our StuG IV build, and thank you for everybody who bared with the last episode, because yes, it was a paint and a repaint, and I really do appreciate the comments that I received over the course of this past week or so. Somewhat of a divide. Some people really liked the first camouflage, wished I would have stayed with that. Other people said, well, hey, this is much better. I can see where you're going with this. So anyway, I appreciate it. I like both camouflages as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar to the first example on perhaps a different kit someplace down the line, because I do like that idea. It just wasn't going to work on this one. Like I said, a little bit too busy, and I think the Zamarit kind of adds to that busyness here. That's kind of what my final conclusion was. After the last video, I did spend some time working on the model, just kind of retrenched and kind of pressed forward, but got to tell you, I kind of needed a break, and so I set the model aside for this past week, and I decided to switch gears. And what did I switch gears to? Well, of course, if you remember, we have a kind of a inspirational reference type photograph that we're following here, and that includes a couple of figures. So yep, this video is all about these guys here, getting their photograph taken on the tank there. Once we get through this video here, we'll have some figures that look just like, well, like this, because this is what we'll end up doing. This is going to be one of those longer form type videos where I'm just going to more or less let the camera roll, and we'll just watch painting go along, because there's not a lot of description I can do, like just kind of blow by blow. A lot of it is just watching the brush strokes. Then next week we'll continue on, of course, with the StuG IV. So to begin, we do have our Alpine Figures. These are British chaps here, and appropriately dressed in their shorts. And so let's pull these out of the box. And Alpine Figures, of course, anybody who's worked with those know what a great quality figures that these are, and this is no exception. As now my new rule is, in terms of figure painting, I'm trying to take a little bit more time in the prep work. So of course we've got a primer layer down there in gray. I use Mr. Surfacer 1200. And then I'll do the zenithal light, but instead of black this time, I'm going to use just a burnt umber, just a little more of a brown tone. The black seems to be a little bit too harsh of a contrast oftentimes, at least in my eye. And then it's just an off-white color that I'm painting over top for the zenithal lights. This will just bring out those shadows and highlights. And of course I do this both on the bodies and on the heads. And since I have my airbrush out, of course, I'll just go ahead and use that to add some of the base layer colors here. And in this case, over the face, I'll just add a medium type flesh tone. And this will just give me a nice foundation with which to start using my brush and bring out all the details. And then this quickly brings us to the part where we start working with our paintbrush, just to bring out those highlights and shadows and do the blending. And so at this point, there's not a lot of commentary I can offer. I'll jump back in from time to time, but I'll just let the video roll. We'll listen to a few tunes in the background. I hope you enjoy the process. I get to about this stage with the faces and the heads that without having the complete picture, I'm having a little bit of a difficulty trying to figure out, exactly where they stand. Do I need to add some more color, more shading, more shadows, more highlights? So I decided to go ahead and finish off their headgear here, and that will just kind of start to frame in the picture, which is their face. Well, over the course of this past little bit, we've been working actually on two different heads. They look very, very similar. They've been going kind of back and forth. You probably haven't even noticed the difference. But here they are. There they are together. And now we're ready to start moving on. We can start working on the rest of the figure. This is that moment where I could say thank you to my Patreon. Thanks, guys. Those are the names you see scrolling across your screen at the moment. If you enjoy this channel and would like to support it, please consider joining Patreon. The link is in the description below. In exchange, early viewing of these videos, photographs of the work in progress. We have a Discord server. We have chats going on. It's a great place, a great community. Please consider supporting this channel. Now, moving on to the bodies, the process is exactly the same. I start off with a dark layer, which is the burnt umber, off-white as my zenithal highlight, the light from above, and then the base colors, this is kind of a uniform, kind of a khaki tan color here for these guys, and I'll just lay that down over top of the zenithal highlight, and this will just allow me to have that like we did with the face colors, the flesh colors on the heads. This will give me a base color for the uniforms. And now, just like that, we are off to the paintbrushes one more time. Now we're finishing up those last details. This guy is about, I don't know, he's about 80%, 90% there right now. I'll touch him up a little bit later on, but it's time to add his head onto the body here. Just a few drops of super glue. Just kind of carefully drop that into the cavity there. And we'll grab his head and we'll secure that in place. And this guy is ready to go. So now this brings us to our second fellow, and this guy is sitting down, of course, all nice and comfortable on the top of that StuG IV. And although these guys were prepped exactly the same, so they both had the burnt umber, the white highlights, and then that tan kind of base color. Once I got to this point, I wanted to have some differences between the first fellow and the second fellow, so I've repainted with the brush, just repainted over the top to kind of bring out more greens and gray tones in his uniform colors. And although I'm giving them some individuality on especially the top parts of the uniforms, I did paint both of the shorts on both of these fellows in the same colors. That's the way we have some unity across the uniforms and across the ranks here. And as you can tell by this time, I've really started to bring out the greens in his sweater that he's wearing. And then just a little pop of color, he's wearing some sort of a scarf or bandana. And just, yeah, I know it's kind of cliche, but just give it some red tones here. Just, like I said, just to give it that pop of color. I know we're all guilty of these little cliches. Now, I feel like we're making pretty good progress with this fellow, but it's not until right now when I start painting in the flesh tones, so on his hands and on his legs, that it really starts pulling everything together. Very similar to painting the headgear on their faces and the heads, their berets. This starts to tighten it up and put some context, and you just don't have all those rough edges, and you can really start to figure out, or at least I can start to figure out how to start finishing these guys off. And now we've got this guy to pretty much that final stage as well. Almost complete. We'll do, again, some final touches here in a little while probably as we start setting the scene, but we'll put a drop of super glue in the cavity. We'll pop his head on, and yeah, he's looking pretty okay. Not too bad. Well, now we're getting close to being finished with this fellow. Let's join him up with his mate. Yep, there we go. Both those guys together. As you can see, their shorts are very common, so we have that unity between the ranks on their uniforms, but we also have some individuality on their top halves and even some pops of color. And this will start to bring us to the conclusion of this episode. Yes, we've done a lot of figure painting on this episode, but you know, we had to do it at some point in time, and I really did need a bit of a break from the StuG, the painting of the StuG, in order to kind of get my mojo back on that. So this has been a very nice diversion. I've thoroughly enjoyed painting these figures. And I do hope you've enjoyed the format of this video, just a kind of, like I said, a longer form format, just allowing the cameras to roll, watching the brush strokes, and basically real time, watching these figures come to life on the screen. All in all, this was about, what did I spend on this? 4 days of painting. I am not the quickest figure painter in the world, that's for sure. However, with that said, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe. And if you'd like to support this channel, I do have a Patreon page, and the link for that is in the description below. Up next, well, we'll continue on with the StuG IV. We'll finish up the painting, we'll do some weathering. Of course, we have tracks, and we have a base to conclude, so we've got a lot still yet to do. Until the next time, everybody, take care and happy modeling.